And welcome to our Town Council meeting for November 21st. If you will please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Moving on to public comment, this portion of the meeting is specifically set aside for comments from the public who are asked to limit their comments to 2 minutes. Any person interested in providing public comment but cannot attend the meeting should email their written comment to publicmeetings@rockyhillct.gov. And we have people.
All right, thank you. I'm here this evening representing the Rocky Hill Education Foundation.
Name and address for the record.
Henry Vassal. Okay, beautiful. Representing the Rocky, I forgot why I'm here again. I'm representing the Rocky Hill Education Foundation. On Facebook, it's just the Education Foundation if you want to look us up. We're having a Jingle Bell Run on December the 17th, Elm Ridge Park at 9 a.m. There's going to be a kids' fun run. And then we have a 2-mile run at 9:30. Please come to refresh your memory. The Rocky Hill Education Foundation returns 100% of all proceeds to the Rocky Hill school system through grants and through scholarships for graduating seniors. It's going to be a fun time. We are encouraging everyone to wear their Christmas sweaters, get dressed up like your favorite reindeer, do whatever you want. We're going to give better than prizes for that stuff. We're going to give bragging rights. That's much better, believe me. And it's going to clutter up your house a lot less. In the event that it can't happen because of a big snow, minor snow, it's still going to happen, we will give you a credit towards our spring race. This is going to be a 2-mile run once again. Minor snow, it's going to happen. It's $20, I believe, for adult, and you can look it up on The Education Foundation on Facebook. And if you guys have any questions, I'll try, but it's pretty straightforward, I hope.
Okay, I don't see any.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Yes. Good evening, Michelle Zach, 9 Kensington Lane. Actually here on behalf of the Rocky Hill Housing Authority, we are looking for an update as to where we stand on the grant proposal that we got promised by the council that we would get assistance in filing. Right now, I know there is an RFP that went out, but it did not go onto the DOH website.
So we don't engage in conversation, but we will take that into account and we'll have someone report back to you.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
Works. Good. George Rustkowski, 138 Spino Ridge. Good evening. Dear Rocky Hill taxpayers, business owners, and residents, I am here to discuss the search process of the town manager position. Personally, I feel, as well as many other town residents, that the search process was not a national search, but merely a smokescreen. Simply put, totally unnecessary. Here's why. The town hired Strategic Government Resources, aka SGR, to conduct a national search for the town manager position. The search firm was paid $16,600 of our tax dollars, which came from tax increases in the last 3 years. As a side note, please keep in mind that our taxes increased after the town and Board of Ed received over $13 million of ARPA, federal, and state grants in fiscal year 21-22. $13 million is 14.7% of revenue from outside sources when compared to the overall town budget for fiscal year 21-22. In the August 15, 2022 Town Council meeting, Deputy Mayor Sharmat mentioned that there were a total of 26 applicants, in which 10 were semifinalists. I am sure a majority of the 10 semifinalists had exceptional qualifications for the position of town manager. During the so-called search process for town manager, the taxpayers of Rocky Hill were led to believe that their tax dollars were being spent wisely to find the best qualified individual for town manager. Yet, The results of the search process indicate that the town knew all along that they would hire the economic developer who was the interim town manager. Is our new town manager the most qualified candidate? Taxpayers had to spend $16,600 for a national search just to hire the interim town manager as the permanent town manager. Myself, as well as many others, do not have confidence in the so-called search process for the position of town manager. The hiring of the search firm was apparently a gimmick so that there was an appearance of a fair, transparent, and equitable process. The search process for town manager was a great disservice to the town, its taxpayers, and business community. In the future, let's improve the search process because this waste of taxpayers' dollars was funded by all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Hi, Lori Bosky, 18 Highland Street. I just have a quick follow-up to the comments I made a few meetings ago related to the School Liaison Committee. As an educator for 37 years, an administrator for 20 of those years, and a past multi-term member for the Rocky Hill Board of Education, I kind of understand a little bit about the relationship between the council and the Board of Education. My concerns are that the committee is still listed on the town website as a full committee with Councilors Thoreau and Moliero as members. I understand that the council can change that if they choose to do so. I would just ask that the council be transparent, and if they want to change it to a liaison with just one person, please do so that the townspeople know who to contact if they have a concern. Another comment is just regarding the collaboration. And if you look at the example set by the Senior Liaison Committee, the committee meets on a scheduled basis and the chair reports back to the council. And to me, this demonstrates that the town council cares about the committee and listens to the concerns of the senior residents in town. The School Liaison Committee has not met and has not reported back to the council in whatever fashion you deem appropriate. There's been quite a bit happening in our schools over the past couple of years: COVID, new board members, new school administrators, busing issues, multiple retirements. And I just feel that the lack of a meeting of this particular committee indicates little support of the Board of Education. And yes, the council does determine how the Board of Ed cannot determine how the Board of Ed spends its allotment, but it would behoove the council to open lines of communication with the board on a regular basis and not just during budget time. And just a quick other note, I just spoke to the safety committee prior to this meeting and shared my concern. I volunteer weekly at this beautiful senior center that's down the hall, and I would wonder if the town could look at a way to number the entrances and exits in the building. We have so many ways people to come in and leave, and they should come, but for safety concerns, considering the latest problems in Colorado, that we really should help out our first responders and have numbered doors both inside and outside the building. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Is that what it is, static? Okay. It's just a bizarre sound that we're listening to, so we're going to go figure out what that is. Okay, moving on to appointments and resignations. A, appointment to the Connecticut Central Regional Tourism District.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to appoint Rita Chabra to the Central Connecticut Regional Tourism District.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Perfect. Moving on to approval of the minutes. A, Town Council meeting October 17, 2022.
Make a motion to approve the council meeting from October 17th, 2022.
Okay.
A second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstentions. Perfect. Moving on to subcommittee reports. Finance.
The Finance Subcommittee did meet last week. Last week was considered a special meeting because our prior week's meeting was postponed because we didn't have a quorum. So just a clarification on that. We spent a good bit of our meeting talking about the Senior Community Center rental fees. As part of our conversations, the rental rates were not really discussed. That was never a question on those. We spent a good deal of time discussing and identifying the categories and which type of entities belong within each category. We've requested that town staff go back and rework the wording based on the suggestions that we made. I ask anybody on the council if they have any comments to it, to run it back through their finance committee leads, and we'll continue to work through that process. We hope to have that for the December, I believe it's the 19th council meeting for approval, and hopefully be ready to put that in place for the beginning of 2023. On the consent agenda this evening, we have a purchase of a plow truck lease. Just one clarification from the finance meeting, we discussed the year of the vehicle being leased. It was noted that it was a 2022, but it is a 2024 vehicle. It doesn't change anything except the year. Probably won't be in until May of 2023, so it won't be for this winter. It was part of our budget process. However, due to inflation costs, it will run about $6,000 more per year on a 4-year lease. Mona, our finance director, is comfortable to be able to cover the overages. So that's on tonight's consent agenda. We do have a tax sale that we are working on. The tax sale is for taxpayers that are 3 years delinquent or over $10,000. Are subject to sale, or any repeat delinquent taxpayers from prior year tax sales. As of September 30th, we had 26 accounts totaling $388,000. As of 10/3, we already received $95,000, which removed 8 accounts and 2 that made partial payments. The tax sale will be scheduled for April or May of 2023. Under state aid for municipalities, we received our ECS funds, our municipal stabilization funds, and American Rescue Plan Tranche 2, all in October. Let's get on to page 2 here. On the revenue side, our collections have been favorable. We are exceeding our 3-year benchmark at the current time. Our interest revenue is actually above the budget level at 219%. Thank you to some new staff in the finance department working on that. Our conveyance tax is at 75% of our budget, and that's primarily due to one large transaction in July for over $100,000. We did receive our KERMA members' equity distribution. And on the expenditure side, expenditures are on target. We do have some salary savings with the change in town manager, and otherwise we are in pretty good shape on the expense side. And that concludes the finance report.
Thank you. I just want to welcome Deputy Mayor Charmet, who is here virtually with us. I don't know if people know that. Moving on to government operations.
Government Operations has not had a meeting since our last town council meeting, but we are scheduled to meet on Monday, December 5th.
Okay. Public safety.
Yeah, so I will be doing the report, if that's okay, Ed, right? Yeah, all right. So because Ed is joining by Zoom, I'm going to do the public safety, and I'll start with the fire. So from the fire department, it looks like the highway reimbursement program is going well, with a total of $27,500 billed to the state, and they are as busy as ever attending to these events on 91, same severity and frequency as reported by Chief Gary in like previous months. So they continue to, I think it's about 18% of their calls which are from the 91 corridor. So it continues to be a high frequency zone for them. On the training side, the fire department is training for October 2022, consisted of 3 regular weekly drills, and also they had a live burn training which some of our public safety members attended. And there's also like, things with through social media, they're trying to recruit. So there is a big piece of activity going on there as they are like looking for people to join the department. And they are So if you know someone who is interested, like they are very happy to actually look at that person because they are all out on that right now. Also, actually, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Chief Gary got a letter from East Hartford Fire Chief for his role and the RHPD's role in the ceremony for the 2 slain officers in Bristol, and their help in that putting together that event and ceremony to actually honor those officers. So there is a letter from the fire chief of East Hartford Fire Department with the mayor on the copy. So really proud of that. Really proud of our department who's out there and helping other towns as well. So it really something worth reporting there. And I wanted to also report on Central Connecticut Health District. It's some interesting stuff here in this report. They talked a lot about influenza in this report, not so much COVID. Thankfully, the rates of COVID positivity rates are down in the state, but the influenza rates are like really going up. So I don't know if you can see it, but it's like a hockey stick. And between August 14th and November 13th, they had 39 cases of influenza reported through a PCR test, by the way, which is not all the recorded cases, because the PCR is the only way the state actually records these. So there are 39 of them, and mostly in the 5 to 18 age group, and that is supposed to be like the most active age group when they have the age breakdown. There are some like really nice charts here. But unfortunately, I can show you that we just had a meeting like an hour ago. So, but what we need to be careful about this is actual cases actually are much higher as reported by the Central Connecticut Health District because of all the reporting that is not done, which is outside of those PCR tests. So hospital and urgent care centers in Connecticut report patient data to Connecticut's surveillance system. It's called Epicenter. The surveillance data on patient visits who experience symptoms for influenza-like illness and fever provide this another way to report these cases. And what the Central Connecticut Health District is saying is that these numbers are way higher than what has been reported in the state through their reporting systems. So just something to be careful about that. Again, a lot of education needed for the common public, and I think something we should all be monitoring going forward. So that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Senior Liaison?
Senior Liaison is now meeting quarterly. Our next meeting's in January.
Okay. Land Acquisition and Farmland Preservation?
Mayor, we did walk down the Streska farm to see a little bit of the rezoning of the wetlands and some new pollution or contaminated areas. So the wetlands jut into our plans, our map for the common community garden area, but it's workable, and we are redesigning that map now as we speak for the next meeting, which will be not until November 29th, the next land acquisition meeting. Also, it was good that we did take down the Streska homestead, and there is lead paint contamination around the perimeter of where the house used to stand, but a small amount, and will be removed physically and packaged up and taken off site when they start to excavate the site. And then there are 2 wells, one deep well drilled and one shallow well. The deep well has been tested. It is not contaminated, and the shallow well will be treated, will be tested before we're using the site anyways, whether we keep that well open or close it permanently.
Okay, thank you. Liaison to the state representative and the state senator?
No report.
Thank you. School liaison.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So it took about a year-long effort, but the Board of Education, I'm happy to report, has adopted Diwali as the school holiday for the next school year. We joined only 4 other towns in Connecticut to recognize Diwali in our schools. A holiday celebrated by Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, and Sikhs, if you didn't know. Diwali school holiday is another important step forward for our agenda to respond to the changing needs, interests, and demographics of our community here in Rocky Hill. A 3-year effort that includes the creation of Commission on Inclusion and Innovation, the Task Force on Sustainability, and various programs that help our seniors and veterans. So we are doing a good job there. As a town councilor, also as an immigrant of Indian descent, I'm proud to be part of this administration that is leading the way to embrace diversity and inclusion, and many communities within our community of Rocky Hill. So I thank many residents, local families, and students who supported, advocated, and worked hard to see Diwali holiday become a reality in our schools. Attending Board of Ed meetings and voicing support for the holiday over the last year. However, making the right arguments and having community support sometimes isn't enough. As you saw last week in Farmington, the Farmington Board of Education rejected a push by the Farmington community to recognize the festival of Diwali as a school holiday, disappointing many people of South Asian descent and of the Hindu and other faiths. Changes of this magnitude require an inside and outside effort. It requires rallying those who can effectively influence a decision. So I would like to thank the Board of Education, specifically Chair Brian Dillon and members Dilip Desai and Stephen Slattery for all their hard work and collaboration with me as the school liaison, and allowing me to be the bridge between them and the Indian community to bring these efforts to fruition. And since I have the floor, Madam Mayor, I would like to address another issue that I've spoken about in the past, but looks like there is a need to clarify again for our fellow residents the role and responsibilities of the school liaison as it pertains to the council and the Board of Ed. As I said in October meeting, school liaison is supposed to be a facilitator, part of the network between BOE and the council. There is no school liaison committee. There is a school liaison, just like the liaison for state rep and state senator. And since there is no committee, there are no meetings. Our town manager clarified this on the record in the town council meeting of April 4, 2022, and I read his comments in the record during our October meeting. So for the people who missed that meeting, this is what the town manager's report said for April 4, 2022. Town manager Mayor asked Mayor Maratha if she has anything to add to Mayor's report. She said she has nothing. Town manager Mayor referred back to subcommittee reports. He said school liaison isn't really a committee, and it is just a liaison. This is just one person between the Board of Ed and the town. He mentioned that this isn't really a committee per se like the other ones are, except for the liaison for the state representative and state senator. Councilor Prakash asked town manager Mayor if there is any need, any process, or if that is the understanding. Town manager Mayor said he thinks that is the understanding because once the town council allocates money to the Board of Ed, then they can do whatever they want. He told Councilor Prakash that even if they form a committee, they can't do anything to affect the education process because this is the Board of Ed's responsibility. Town manager Mayor said this is more of a network between the Board of Ed and the town with regards to whatever ideas or requests might be coming down. Councilor Prakash confirmed that the school liaison will pretty much act like a liaison to the state representative and the state senator. Town manager mayor said, yes. Councilor Prakash said, thank you. End quote. So, however, this is, having said that, this is a bigger issue. Even after the clarification, there are some who continue to willfully look the other way and mislead the public on this issue. The good news is that the campaign is over. The bad news is that as we move into the new year and a new local campaign season starts, it is alarming to imagine edited out of context and misleading montages of every member of this council, from that side of the aisle to this side of the aisle, voting no, saying no on any given issue, or even saying no questions to presenter in this forum to be edited and put in a 30-second clip. I think this is a terrible development for the people who voluntarily serve our community in an unpaid elected capacity. Having to worry about a 30-second montage every time they say or not say anything. So, I understand there is no way to put this toothpaste back in the tube, as they say, or close the door once it's open to the barn or wherever you want to take this metaphor, but I'm an optimist. So let me put it this way. I'm hoping that there is change in tone and tenor going forward, and we can focus on continuing to serve the residents of our town to best of our ability. Thank you.
Thank you. Capital Improvements Committee,
Capital Improvements has not met since the last council meeting.
Economic Development Subcommittee.
Also has not met since the last council meeting.
Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda. A, lease of the plow truck highway department.
Madam Mayor, motion to approve the consent agenda?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No abstentions? Thank you. Moving on to old business A, discussion possible action, American Rescue Plan ARP funding options. I always turn to Alan as finance chair.
I have nothing at this point from the finance side.
Okay. Mona, do you have anything?
No, we don't.
No. That end have anything?
Just confirming again how long we have before we have to choose.
To be expended June 30, 2024.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to B, deep grant update. I will move to Town Manager Carpentino.
Okay, let me get down to that section. This electronic is really working out nicely. Yeah, okay.
Gotcha.
It's not in there.
Yes. I got you.
In the interim, we have these nice new pictures. Did you notice? I like them because they seem clean.
No.
Staring at the cookies. I missed my window.
We should have put milk in here. It would have been good.
Well, I apologize for not having my memo included in the package.
Oh, yeah.
See that, did you?
No,
Not in there?
no.
Okay,
You're right.
yeah.
At least you don't have to feel bad about missing it in the packet now.
Anyway, our town attorney Ken Slater has been in contact with us and also in contact with Murphy Road, constant contact, as well as Deep. Murphy Road has submitted an application to perform the activities that are outlined in the Deep grant. Right now, they are working with Deep, and according to Attorney Ken Slater, Deep is looking very favorably at this point on their application to service the town in accordance with some of the requirements of that Deep grant. There may be modifications to the grant, but we're not sure what those details are yet. So right now, we're still waiting from Deep and Murphy Road to provide us with a couple of options as far as how they will go about picking up, separating, and then transporting the materials, either off-site and or within our own recycling facility. So nothing definite at this point, unfortunately.
But it is exciting news that there is communication and collaboration, and that Murphy Road is looking into the permitting process to do what it is we're trying to achieve. Because at the end of the day, we don't care who the vendors are, right? We have a goal, and we hope to accomplish that goal with deep funding, if it's possible. So I think it's positive.
So just ask.
Yeah, of course.
Ray, do we have a time frame for the completion of this? Because, and I said this at a prior meeting, DEEP is the issuer of the grant, and they're also the one negotiating with Murphy Road. So I'm kind of struggling with why this takes so long. It's like the right hand fighting with the left. I
think it's taking so long because we were going along a different path originally with the grant when it was originally applied for back in July, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
We were going down one path, and then this contract issue came up, so we had to stop, and we had to evaluate the impact of that contract if we went with the grant, what would happen to us as a town. That took time. Now, with Murphy Road trying to accomplish the grant activities, that's taking time to review that, to get the application in, to analyze if Murphy Road is eligible through DEEP. So all this takes time, unfortunately.
Okay. I just want to make sure we don't lose our opportunity
Right.
to get the grant because it lapses with
I don't
DEEP
think-
on both sides of the equation.
I doubt that will ever happen. This is a priority for DEEP, Rocky Hill is. And then if we are coming up on a deadline, there's usually an extension clause that we can exercise with DEEP.
Thank you.
Just in terms of the mechanics of what happens next, it sounds like the people are working together in good faith. We're within the scope of what the original project was. Once Murphy Road and DEEP are in agreement on the parameters, does it come back to the council to reapprove the agreement as an amendment, or does that work through staff? How does that work once DEEP and Murphy Road are on the same page?
I believe it'd be worked through staff, but with town council knowledge. We're not going to do anything without town council knowing anything. And once you do know, and if you have issues, of course, that will be voiced.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to new business. A, Rivers Edge Development, AKA the Foundry update, and we will welcome Attorney Eric Parker. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members, town staff. Thanks for having me. My name is Eric Parker from Romano Parker and Associates. My partner, Mike Romano, has presented to the council a number of times throughout the years on the pendency. I was asked to come. Mr. Carpentino sent me an email and asked me to be here just to give an update on where things stand. As you know, our firm for many years has represented Riverfront Future Partners, the owners of the parcels down there, along with its owner, Leonard Thyland, its principal, who's had an equity interest in that parcel all the way back to 1995. There's been a list of challenges with that parcel that I could spend the rest of the evening and probably several more council meetings, as I think Attorney Romano sometimes did or attempted to do, giving you a rundown of all the things that happened there. But what I can tell you is this. There's been movement. There's been progress. I did, speak to my client in advance of this meeting, and I can tell you he's still committed to getting this project done. Here's some of what's happened that has led to these delays, and they do continue to some point. As you know, early on in this process, there was protracted litigation that was sensitive and combative and long. It didn't wrap up until 2018, long after the project had gone through some commission approvals. There was still pending litigation in place. Then there were design challenges as well. Not only is this an environmentally sensitive site, but it's also a site that has other challenges. Even something as simple, or it sounds simple maybe to the layperson, as negotiating with the railroad company and the railroad crossing, years were spent years hammering out an agreement with the railway company, only for the railway company to be sold and us to have to start back. We said, oh, great, welcome, nice to meet you, you're the new owners, here's the agreement we reached. And they said, no, we're going to start back at the beginning. And it's just the kinds of things that have happened. This is a very tough site, and that's led to a lot of these challenges. Most of them really have been resolved at this point. We've worked through the railroad issue. The environmentals were submitted to DEEP back in April of 21. I confirmed with our environmental consultant that at this point, we're in a position where the remedial action plan, there's one Transfer Act site, all the parcels in there have been submitted to DEEP with the licensed environmental professional overseeing what's going to happen. Once that work begins, his best estimate is a 3 to 6 month remediation at the site, and there will be ongoing obligations, groundwater monitoring, things like that. That's all part of the plan that's been submitted and approved. But the bulk of it that has to happen before structures can rise over there is about a 3 to 6 month process. Then, of course, you have to remember the delay that was created not only in the construction process and the approval process, but really in the entire market with COVID. And as you know, there was this monumental delay that no one had seen before, but on all fronts, on getting an approval from any sort of government agency because everybody suddenly was working from home, on the materials, on work from architects and designers and engineers. And so that's something that also led to a delay and led to a struggle. That process largely has now concluded to where the current status of where things are. We're at the design phase with architects, and at this point bids are out to some architecture firms to get interior floor plans, designs, bathrooms, bedrooms, things like that within the buildings. I know there's requests for proposals out to several architecture firms. The big key that my client is looking for is someone with some local familiarity. From the very beginning, it's been very important. He knows to the town that this fit in that area, that it looks like it's supposed to be there, that it be an attractive development. And so that's something he's looking for. And at this point, that's what's happening is we're waiting on proposals from architects, which will then allow pencils to go to paper or whatever happens, modern CAD programs will design it or whatever it is, so that we can have actual plans and be ready to submit for a building permit. It is his hope that he'll be at that building permit stage sometime in 23, early 23 is his hope. But he has told me that that's his hope, is to get going on this project and actual developments on the site in the new year. That is going to trigger the beginning of the environmental. Once we get the building permit, the plan is to, get everything set, ready to go, and then we get shovels in the ground, and that'll kick off that environmental review. I can just give you one other update. And it's something that I discussed with Mayor Murata earlier this year, is the aesthetics of the site. They're not great. And I think I can say that without, getting an angry phone call from my client. My phone hasn't buzzed yet, so I must be doing okay. But they're not great. It's been there for a long time, and that's led, the fence is deteriorated. There's been some paint on the Jersey barriers, and there's some brush that's overgrown. So one of the things that my client was asked to do, and he's willing to do, is to try to just make the site look a little better in the interim, knowing that with architecture and site work and remediation, there is still going to be some time that's going to pass. So he's agreed, at the mayor's request, we looked into it, to install some aesthetic fencing along if you were coming down Glastonbury Ave, where there's the sweeping curve as you head towards the ferry, that's where the Jersey barriers start, and then they head on down Meadow Road. Everything, basically that whole stretch that you can see there, they're in the process right now of bringing in a fencing contractor to put up a fence that's going to have a extra fancy screening on it. You've probably seen those construction fence with the green slats just so you can't see in. They make another type where instead of just a green slat, it actually looks like it's flower plantings on the bottom and then arborvitaes in the back, just to give it a little bit more of an aesthetic. And my client is certainly interested in every detail of this project and having it come out just the way he wants and just the way it should be. but he also appreciates that this is a site that the town has a lot of concern about, and that the town hopes to have more and more people driving down Glastonbury Ave and seeing that site. So in the interim, he has committed to getting that fence in there. Somehow the lawyer ended up out there with the fence contractor a couple weeks ago, walking back and forth with one of those roller measuring things. I don't know how that happened, but it's happening. I can tell you because I was out there. And they're working on bids. It's just like everything else with this project. The fencing we were talking about is a 6-foot screen. There's Jersey barriers, so that means the pretty flowers wouldn't be visible. So we're going to get an 8-foot fence and put the 6-foot screen on the 8-foot. So just like everything else, there's one little challenge after another, but they're going to fix that up and at least make it a little nicer in the interim, because we understand that that's an important site to this town. And then the more exciting news is he is committed to the project and hopes to be coming to the town for approvals and building permits, with approval plans for actual construction in 2023. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, so it has been a while, and there have been some changes. So can you just sort of refresh our recollections and summarize what the key project elements are?
Sure. So it's a total it's the same building footprint as essentially was approved. There hasn't been any movement to the buildings. There's been some interior modifications. It's 97 residential units, between 7,000 and 8,000 square feet of retail and restaurant space, 4 buildings, a clubhouse building with community access, a room that the community would be able to use. There is still Tulisano Park, which is on the northeasternmost side of the parcel as you turn that corner. There is still the river walk. There are boat slips envisioned. The idea is that this will be a crown jewel along the waterfront in Rocky Hill.
And how much of it will have to be accessible to the public? I mean, Tulisano Park obviously is a public amenity, but it is private property we are describing. So, but you're talking about boat slips, though. I mean, is that just people who live there, or can you sort of break out for us how much of this really is just for the people who are going to live there versus what elements maybe have some broader application for the town?
Well, as far as access to the entire site, the river walk would be during dawn to dusk sort of hours. The river walk would be accessible, and that would go all along that shoreline area. So largely accessible to the town. Tulisano Park, of course, would also be accessible to the town. There's the retail area, so I wouldn't say that any of it is off limits to the town people in that sense, because there will be, public invited. But of course, yeah, there's residential units and, things that go along with residential units. I think a fitness center or something like that wouldn't just be open to the town. But a large portion of the facility, because of that river walk and because of the park, would be accessible and able to be visited.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Quick question. I sat, I think, about 20 hours or so of hearings back many, many years ago in the Wetlands Committee. I think there may have been a permit extension due to COVID. What is the status of that permit? And I believe there might have been some conditions, a number of them that were approved. How are we tracking towards meeting those conditions before we move forward?
This is how much homework I do. I have the permit.
It wasn't a planted question, I swear.
No, and I didn't know it was coming, but I brought the permit because I was not in those hearings many years ago. So the original permit, like I said, I'm looking at it right here, was October 16th, 2013. It was extended in 2018 for an additional 5 years. Then during COVID, the legislature passed legislation saying that any special permit approvals would expire not less than 19 years from when they were granted. So theoretically, the special permit, would be good if it was 2013 until 2032.
Oh, okay. And then in terms of the construction phasing, I'm sure you get asked this a lot. People ask us as well. You mentioned that when the permits get issued, the environmental. What about the removal of the other structures, the silos, and the other building? Is that going to be done before construction starts, or is it going to be rolling in phases? How's that going to work?
So the removal of the silos was a condition of the permit. So that was something that was put on the project way back in 2013. It's also part of the environmental remediation plan. There had to be testing done for the materials and such. A lot of the clean rubble, of which much of the silo area is, will be used as fill in other parts of the property to avoid creating debris that goes off-site. I know that was part of the environmental plan at the time. Because it's part of the remediation, my understanding is that that will be the first sequence because the Transfer Act parcel, the former automotive site, is right dead center in the middle of where the residential is going. All the properties, all the parcels were submitted with a remediation plan, but that's the sensitive one, and so that part will just all go first. Like I said, the anticipation is building permit, then remediation, and then shovels in the ground to build.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about the timeline again? What are we looking at from a timeline perspective? I know you talked about the permitting in 23, early 23.
Yeah, our hope is that's where we'll be in 23. The current moment, right now, the work is on getting an architect because we can't do anything until we have an architect on board who can draw the individual, walls and design of the inside the building. So the hope is that happens very soon. That will lead to a set of plans, which will lead to building permits and get things going. Certainly, the hope is to get this thing going in 2023, but I don't have a better timeline than that just because the architect is such a key piece. And literally at this time, there's a request for proposals out there to get somebody on board to actually, take it from a site plan and draw interiors of buildings and such.
Okay, thank you.
Just from a follow-up with the timeline. I know there's work to be done on the front end, but once you get the shovel in the ground, what's the anticipated time to complete the project and start having residents or retail space utilized?
I don't have an exact answer for you, but I can tell you that that's a big concern of my clients is that it's not, once that goes, he wants it to go. And I think that's part of the concern with, getting everything lined up and ready to go is that he wants to just be ready, so it just gets knocked out once it goes. I don't have an estimate because I don't think without plans they haven't gotten as far as talking to contractors or anything like that who would do the building. So I don't have a great answer for you on that, except that I know his number one goal is once it gets greenlit, he wants it to go.
Thank you.
Again, this may be putting the cart before the horse a little bit, but because I know you're still talking about plans and things, but generally speaking, is the idea to have the retail and restaurant space in the same buildings as the residential, like the first floor of that, and then residential above, or separate buildings? The reason I ask is because we've had other instances in town, like Corporate Center West, I think, where they built the residential, then they're supposed to build all this retail and restaurant, and all of a sudden that came later, and then they didn't build it on, and that caused kind of an issue, so we want to avoid.
Well, the good news is it's in building 1.
Okay, so.
That's what it says on the plan. I don't know how they're going to build them. But if you've looked at that plan through the years, there's the buildings along the riverfront. The first building you would come to as you came down Glastonbury Ave is building 1, and the 7,000 to 8,000 of retail and restaurant space is the first floor of that building. Okay. So it would be sort of the front-facing piece of the complex.
Great.
Based on that, I mean, I don't want to, like you said, put the cart before the horse, but it's a pretty key component to the design.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you.
I have a question. That project may increase traffic in that area. Are there any designs to do any improvements on the roads down there?
I don't have it in front of me, but a big part of the initial process was traffic study, and that was some of what was negotiated with the railway and having crosswalks and sidewalks and things like that. I don't have it in front of me. I looked at as much of the crazy files on our computer as I could. I didn't go through that, but I do know that was a big part of the early process way back before approval in 2013, that was a big piece of it with the traffic study and how many cars and all the things like that. And that was a big part of our negotiation with the railroad, was to meet the requirements for the traffic and the pedestrians and such. There had to be some crosswalks and such across the tracks, which was what we were negotiating with the railroad. So I know it was a big priority. That's where, not having Attorney Romano, he's got it all up in his head, which is a crazy trick. I don't, but it is, I can tell you it was a big part of the planning.
And can we hope for maybe some update in the spring when you get some of these approvals, or as we get them, can we have more updates?
I got the email and I showed up. If another email arrives, I will hopefully be here again.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
I have a quick question around,
Sure.
I know that I don't have much of the history myself that far back, but it sounds like there was always barriers in the way. We're always knocking them down, finding another one. I know that we're in the solutioning phase, such as putting the architectural plans together and so forth, which will build the plans and so forth. Is there any key high-level risks, 1, 2, 3 really big ones that we're potentially anticipating, considering all the learnings that we've done up to date? Is there anything that we're looking at, and are we mitigating against those now?
That's a great question. I don't know that I can identify for you, this is the key thing we have to watch out for. I think, you all know from seeing the proposals that come through the town, the appetite for this type of project. I mean, the consumer is out there. If you look at it just from a business perspective, there's people clamoring to get into this, type of development. I think we've done the environmental. We've dealt with the railroad, which was a crazy heavy lift because they have, rules that were created in like 1786. We've done a lot of the big things that could be a hurdle on a development project. We've done them. We know we're going to have to, do soil testing when we do environmentals, but there's a plan if they're bad. There's nothing that jumps out at me as, this is the make or break moment from here. I think it's more about, if the appetite for this project is there, they're ready to go. They're at the phase now where I think we're past a lot of those hurdles. I mean, there was, with previous town representatives, there was litigation, there was fighting, there was, all sorts of contention. We did surveys for protected species. Everything that might derail a project, not to make any comment on if they're good or bad, but just things that throw off development projects, they happened. Largely on this one. I can't think of one. They've hit every, every single thing that could get in your way, they've had it and dealt with it. So off the top of my head, I can't think of one. I guess those are famous last words, and we'll pull this tape back. But off the top of my head, I can't think of one, and I would tell you if I could, but I can't.
Thank you.
I did think of just kind of along that note. I'm not sure this is a better question actually for you, for Ray. But in terms of allowed uses there, retail pretty tough, maybe getting tougher. I'm not sure how big of a component of the success of the project relies on that retail. Do you have the flexibility if retail isn't a great fit to pivot to a professional office or another use that'd be a commercial use, but maybe more compelling? Just know that we hear a lot about retail, but it's it's a pretty tough game these days.
Yeah, I'm looking down at the approval just to see the wording of it. I believe it's just mixed use, retail, restaurant, non-residential space is what the approval says about that area. On our plans, it's always been restaurant, retail. I've seen no proposal that says anything else, but I'm reading to you from the approval, and it's not specific as to anything more than that.
There's always an opportunity to go back to the commission for a modification for uses, particularly based on the evolution of the market. And like you said, retail now is pretty tight. That particular location may have a niche retailer or maybe a smaller restaurant type footprint. But those are all options that I'm sure the Planning and Zoning Commission, will look at it with an eye towards the current market at that time.
It hasn't been a concern that I've heard in the meetings that I've sat in on regarding that space. It's always been designated that way, and I think it's thoughtfully designed enough that they're not at this time concerned about that designation. And in fact, I confirm they're committed to that at this time.
All right, well, I will just end by thanking you for that thorough, and albeit it was actually short compared to what we're used to, and you hit every particular concern and question that we have, and so we very much appreciate that. I know the public very much appreciates this. We will share it tomorrow on social media so that those who are not watching the meeting know, and of course, we are very thankful for that aesthetic fencing. I know that it's not inexpensive. I know that, in fact, it's quite expensive, but we do have so many projects in the works right now that it really will be very valuable asset for us. And so we appreciate his commitment. It shows that, he's committed to the project and to the town, and we're very thankful. So please, if you can send that message on behalf of us, we'd appreciate it.
I certainly will. And I told him it was important, and we're going to get it done.
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney Parker.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to item B, discussion, possible action, complete streets policy. Do we have a guest?
Tonight we have a guest, Town Planner Kim Ritchie, to come up and give a quick overview of what complete streets are. I know I gave you a short memo kind of introducing the concept, and then Kim and the Planning Implementation Committee developed this draft policy that you have in your package.
And your memo summed it up, because I think you took the first line of the draft policy.
Of course I did, yes.
And put it in the memo. So it's basically how we view our community and how we design and use our streets for inclusivity. You mentioned inclusivity before. Diversity, obviously, diversity of populations, diversity of abilities, diversity of age groups, diversity of modes of transportation, whether it be walking, biking, public transportation, the e-scooters you see, the e-bikes you see. The draft policy, and it is just a draft, it is for your consideration. It is put together by what we call the Plan Implementation Committee, created out of the 2015 Plan of Conservation and Development. It's members of various boards and commissions, staff that services those boards and commissions, and we also have some of the people in the room, or at least one of our members, Derek Kalin, who actually kind of merged into our committee by attending and sharing common interests with the people that sit at that advisory board. It is just that, is an advisory board. So we put together thinking of sustainability, thinking about connectivity, walkability. I know that's a big push for this administration, for our Planning and Zoning Commission as well, sidewalks, connecting communities, connecting people to other people. So we have a draft, Complete Streets Policy. We're hoping that the council will review it, modify it, change it, make it your own. The idea is to have the Community Development Services Department and Public Works Department, along with our land use boards and commissions, to embrace the policy once it's enacted by this body, and use it as a guiding principle for development, not only development, new development, but pavement projects. If we're taking and redoing a road or repaving a road, what can we improve on that road? Do we need to add more ADA accessible locations, more ramps? Do we need to think about crosswalks? Do we need to think about signage for crosswalks? Bike lanes, bike signs? Could we maybe add a bus shelter on that location? What about for kids? Kids taking their big wheels down the streets? What about people walking with canes? What about people with impaired vision? What about people that may not have the funds to buy a bike but need the bus stop? So maybe we need to contact CT Transit and say, okay, we have a large population here. Maybe we can have a bus shelter in this location. So the policy is trying to guide the town, trying to take the town forward. There are 10 items within the policy that are mandatory things that we must consider, some of which are performance measures. So I see that happening maybe in your budgetary process when you talk about, okay, so how many lineal feet of handicap ramps, or how many handicap ramps did we do this year? How many bike signs did we put up this year? So there are certain things that you people will have to look at when you look at budgets, say, how did we do this year? What can we do better? And communication, there needs to be updates between Community Development Services, Public Works, and the Town Council. So there has to be an open line of communication, whether we report on a annual basis or maybe a biannual or quarterly basis. So it's for your thoughts. It's based upon fact and design guidance, so there are some standards, the MUTC D manual, Federal Highway Safety Standards that have to be looked at as well. So we're not doing this just pie in the sky. So this is based upon fact. And we are working, as I said, we're working with Sustainable CT, Walk Bike Rocky Hill representatives are on the PIC committee as well. And we came together with the draft. It was modified by a few members, so we have some decent input, and we would like you to consider it. It is a draft, and it's now yours to run with and modify as you see fit. So if you have any questions.
I just have one question.
Certainly.
So those 10 requirements that we should be cognizant about and reviewing maybe at budget time.
Well, the 10 requirements are more the requirements of the policy.
Okay.
There are performance measures, item 8, performance measures that we talk about, and you can obviously change those if you see fit. But we're talking, funding on Complete Streets improvements. Obviously, when Steve Sopelak, Director of Community Development Services, puts together his request for road improvements, obviously he goes through state aid, road aid, lots of monies are used also, but are there other funding sources? Are there grants available? Sidewalks and public transportation, we're talking about, okay, how many linear feet of sidewalk did we do? Where's the sidewalks needed? We have people that come to our PIC committee and say, okay, we would like to see sidewalks in this area of town. And one of the people that did come to our committee mentioned Century Hills and that whole neighborhood, Century Hills Drive, and that's being worked on even as we speak.
Yeah.
So, bike-related improvements, trails, lanes, bike racks. Planning and Zoning Commission in their last zoning regulation updated our regulation to include a section on biking and bike racks and considerations for those types of things, as well as sidewalks. One of the things we'd like to do is come back to the council and talk about a possible modification to one of the town ordinances on subdivisions, where subdivisions require sidewalks. We'd like to do that in commercial areas as well. But that's tied to the town ordinances and that in the sidewalk fund. We'd like to talk about that too.
Yeah.
So we'll be back on that.
Great. I think my question is more, though, how do we as a council get that data so that we know, will it be through, let's just use Steve Sopelak and this linear footage or, for sidewalks. Will we be presented with data on that and then guided as to what the departments think is needed from a budget perspective to reach the goals of this document?
I would say the answer is yes.
Okay.
I can't speak for the department head, but I have talked to him about it, and he does sit with that committee, PIC, so as one of the advisors to the PIC committee. So I would say yes. We as staff, whether it be myself or others, will be providing the council with that information.
Okay.
Can I just follow up on that?
Yeah, thank you.
Those measurements and goals and metrics will be tied in to the budget process on an annual basis. So when you're going through reviewing the budget, you'll see in the new budget process goals, objectives, and matrix. So a matrix would be, okay, we put in 800 linear feet of sidewalk this year, and that would go towards the policy. Or even beyond community development services, it could go into the human services, where Melissa may be doing a couple of things that would trigger, a review of the policy, and those items would be in the policy. And those goals and metrics and objectives will be in that line item for that budget, for that department budget.
This is going to be the most exciting budget process this year when we have this new system.
It'll be innovative, that's for sure.
It's definitely going to be innovative, yes.
I'm looking at the performance measurements, and would those include at any point, like traffic lighting on some of those streets if necessary? And if it involves a state road, perhaps working with the state on correcting traffic lighting issues.
Okay, and that is something we do now, actually. Members of our department, whether it be myself, Steve Sopelak, one of our engineers, we do contact the state. Sometimes we're not aware of, maybe there's a signal timing issue. I mean, we've had a lot of, the state did go through and do a lot of re-signalization of lights along Cromwell Avenue and along Celestine Highway. But there have been instances where we have, in fact, contacted the state about signal timing.
So if other areas were noted by people or something, they could go to your department and you would work on that
Yes.
as part of this and separately as well.
Yeah, and it may be because we're serving different populations, so maybe the crosswalks need certain things for either people with auditory issues or vision issues. There may have to be some sort of modifications needed.
Timing issues,
Yep.
Celestine Highway for seniors,
Yeah.
it may take
Yep.
longer to cross.
Crosswalks, yeah, having longer
So
signals.
I include that in lighting,
Yep.
all of that, okay, thank you.
So kind of picking up on that, how does it work if we're trying to do some of this stuff on our streets versus we have the few major state roads going through town? For example, if we do a bunch of sidewalks along West Street, then all of a sudden West Street doesn't have sidewalks. We can't create those sidewalks, right? That's the state.
No, the
mandate.
town does that. The town has built sidewalks along Cromwell Avenue.
Okay, so those streets can be part of this program as well? It doesn't, even though
As
they're
far
state
as far
roads?
as, well, those are, yeah, we are not dictating, we cannot dictate to the state what will be on those streets. They do have the final say within their right-of-way.
Okay.
But we have built sidewalks and repaired sidewalks along state roads.
So is that done, so in those particular cases, like the local streets, obviously, we have
We
jurisdiction.
take
but-
care of those.
But if we find a need where we want to do something on one of those roads, we have to work with the state to get permission, basically?
Correct.
So- Okay. So their cooperation will be part of this process as well? at times.
We certainly hope so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and how complicated is that process? Actually, just piggybacking on that, the working with the state.
Well, with respect to sidewalks, I can say that.
respect to sidewalks.
Well, I can say that that's been fairly easy, especially since we're building a sidewalk on a state road.
They don't care.
They love
Let
that.
us pay for it.
They love that the town's doing that.
Yeah, like as long as you can spend the money.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we obviously have no jurisdiction over their signals as far as we can't dictate to them where a signal goes. They have certain warrants for a traffic signal, as does any town. But they would have they would tell us where a signal will be going.
And one more question on the sidewalks. Do we have a process? Because this is a common question which comes up with some, periodically, let's just say, right? Which is why we are building sidewalks on Century Hills versus X Street, right? And this happens pretty frequently with residents whoever thinks they should have a sidewalk, when they hear we are building sidewalks at this street, why not my street? Is there a good answer for that question? Because I don't have one really. And what I was looking for is if there is a process by which we decide where to build a sidewalk.
Okay, with respect to that particular sidewalk, that was a request from a resident at a plan implementation committee. And I know our department head, Steve Sopelak, was in attendance at that meeting. And he did have crews go out to Century Hills area. And I don't know if they were counting pedestrians, what have you, but we have received a number of requests.
Right, and I'm not surprised.
In our office about that. So that makes sense. I can only speak with respect to planning and zoning. He has this whole sidewalk plan and sidewalk map that they in engineering prepare for what's an ideal location for a sidewalk. Obviously, schools, connecting schools, populations to schools, populations to business centers, that makes sense from a safety perspective. Safety is always first.
Sure.
Obviously, ease of building the sidewalk is up there. Obviously, you have an area of steep slopes, it's going to be a problem. But population centers, safety, locations, proximity to schools, filling in the gaps.
Sure. All that makes sense to me, actually. But
that-
I think if we
but
put
there
it on a
isn't-
paper somewhere,
Yeah.
from a messaging standpoint, I think the residents don't understand the process. And I think it's a legitimate question, by the way. Like, I do feel it's a legitimate question when somebody asks that question. And if we can figure out a way, and I don't know, probably Steve, and it lies there probably, but I think,
Yes.
I don't know if, Ray, we can put something together in terms of like how we prioritize this. It doesn't have to be a Bible on that, on sidewalks, but it has to be some kind of a guidance, I guess, for people to understand.
Yeah, but that should be pretty easy to do. I know Steve, as Kim has said, Steve has a whole sidewalk plan, and he has a priority in how sidewalks get constructed. We can convert that to a web-based product.
That'll be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I also want to just say, with respect to the Complete Streets policy, the first priority there is safety. I mean, it may be great to have inclusion for all on this one street, but not all streets are created equal. Not all streets are conducive for bus stops. Not all streets are conducive for bike lanes. Not all streets are conducive for sidewalks, even. So safety is key. Safety is the first priority.
And I do want to piggyback on what Ray said, is because I sat on PIC, many years ago, and I do know that there is a master sidewalk plan that Steve has worked on for many, many years. And so it really isn't as easy as just calling up and saying, hey, I want a sidewalk on my street, right? The map is prioritized, and it's based on density and safety and all of those things. And I don't recall how much it is to build, like, how do they look at it, by linear foot?
Yeah, I believe the latest estimate is about $120 a linear foot.
It's insane. I mean, it's absolutely insane.
Since COVID.
So it's a matter of funding availability, because we like to do that via grants. Sometimes the sidewalks will trickle in. Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Madam Mayor, just a question. Kim, the last couple of meetings of public safety in particular, and periodically even before that, a lot of discussion about speeding cars in town as well as on the highway. As an element of complete streets, is there a specific component that includes things like traffic calming, slowing down traffic, things like islands and speed tables and things like that? Is that an element as well?
I just mentioned safety is the biggest priority.
Yeah, you said that, Jenna, but I'm talking more specific. You spoke in safety in terms of, you mentioned specifically, sidewalks, not necessarily appropriate, bike lanes not necessarily appropriate.
Yeah,
but I'm thinking kind of more of the sidewalks into the streets themselves as far as things you can do to slow things down.
Traffic calming is certainly a safety measure.
Okay, so
That's what it's for.
That's part of what this is, then.
That's
It
what it's
includes
for.
those sort of engineering concerns on how to get traffic better under control.
If, for example, we're going to be repaving, or during the paving program, because that's another thing with priorities, is the paving program. Every year they take a look at that. Well, what are we going to pave for this year? What are we going to be paving or reclaiming for next year? And they take a look at that. Speeding, when you take a look at repaving Street X, what can we do to maybe address that problem? I know that our plan of conservation and development talks about the need for maybe a roundabout on Brook Street, where Henkel connects with Brook Street, maybe to get the trucks, instead of turning down Brook Street, maybe taking the turn and going the other way onto Brook Street, instead of going through the residential neighborhood. So that's a traffic calming measure. Speed tables, that's kind of tough, but looking at safety measures that way, that would be part of this policy as well.
Okay, thank you.
I had one follow-up on what the Mayor was saying. This may be more for Mona or Ray, but as far as potential budget impact if we implement this or something along the lines of this, do we have any feel for that, or is it all going to be based on grants, or are we going to or do things irrespective of grants, or what's kind of the general thought there?
Do you want to? Yeah, I think you're going to find, as we have in the past, is a combination of sources, because we do have, I think Kim mentioned, to the lot SIP or low SIP, so there are funds available from the state that will cover that, but we are getting to that pattern that we did last year, which is to set aside some of this money, for these purposes. So we really should be funding it in general budget, even though the money's coming from state sources as well. But it looks like the dependency in prior years has been more of the state grants, but we really, if we wanted to go with this direction, we should start funding a bit more.
And that would probably go through the Capital Improvement Commission, right?
And I think that we have in the past few budgets put aside either $100,000 or $200,000 specific for road repairs, which inclusive in that is sidewalks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and I guess kind of along those lines, would it be correct to kind of summarize what we're looking at doing with the Complete Streets as we're really adopting a set of design principles to help our different town departments make decisions moving forward rather than a specific plan?
Correct. That's correct.
So, and then once we have a Complete Streets program, or if we've adopted these, does that open us up to any new pools of funding, or is that more of like either grants or, I guess mostly grants, but other pools of fundings that we might compete for? The fact that we have this and we've adopted it, we're thinking about our streets and our pedestrian access in this way. Does that put us in any sort of advantage, or does it just help us plan better?
I can't say, well, Ray will.
Yes. We will get extra points in grant applications at a minimum, and I anticipate that some grants, either now or in the future, require, do you have a Complete Streets policy? I can see that coming very soon. But yes, it will help with our point system depending on the grant.
And then just as we review this, because I think that was the goal, we're going to take the draft and look over it. Is there any of our neighboring towns or any comparable towns that are doing this really well that we might want to look at how they've organized themselves around the program? We can kind of, copy off their sheet a little bit.
Well, as most regulations and most ordinances are borrowed and modified by other locations. This too was borrowed, modified, and then modified again and edited. So we, meaning Steve and myself, looked at a variety of communities in Connecticut that had Complete Streets policies, and this has been around since early 2000s. And Madison was one of them that had. They actually won an award for their policy. Some of the policies are pages and pages long, and I don't think that's what we're trying to do here. I think we're just trying to get a direction for the town to go in, and hopefully this has done that. But we did utilize other communities as some ideas as well.
I think that's helpful. I'm glad you mentioned Madison. It's helpful, I think, especially if we talk about some things that might be more either esoteric or have a lot of what ifs. It's good to think, we're trying to make our towns like that or something similar to that. So that's helpful to have as a frame of reference while we're reviewing the document.
Okay.
Okay. I think we're good. Thank you so much. Have a good evening. Let's move on to C, reauthorization, Connecticut State Bond Commission Grant Award, Elmridge Park improvements.
My memo kind of sums it up. It's very simple. Change in town management. They're looking for just a reauthorization for this particular grant, for me to authorize me to enter into contracts.
Gotcha.
So with that, I will make a motion to authorize Ray Carpentino as town manager to enter into contracts and agreements associated with the Elmridge Park Bond Commission grant applied for back in January 2022.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstentions? Thank you, Mr. Sharmat. Okay, great. Moving on to the mayor's report, just a couple things to report on. Over the weekend, on Saturday, the BAPS Hartford Temple held this extraordinary event to celebrate the centennial birth of Pramukh Swami Maharaj. And it was about a 3.5 hour program, incredibly elaborate, beautiful dancing, beautiful storytelling, incredible history, and then an amazing dinner. So I know if folks are not familiar with BAPS, they do a number of things for our community. They are actually physically located in Newington, but they're constantly supporting Rocky Hill, helping people with food insecurities, helping our food pantries, helping our youth and our students, helping our Rocky Hill Education Foundation, and so much more that they do. And there are many, many members and devotees who live here in Rocky Hill. So I just wanted to acknowledge them and thank them for everything that they did. And it was a beautiful event. We have Mr. Kalin in the audience, and I want to give a shout out to him and the Sustainable Rocky Hill crew for hosting the first ever Pumpkin Smash. So it was in partnership with our library, Mary Hogan, our director, Parks and Rec, Lori Stanzik and her amazing Y2Y coalition, and various staff and just folks from the community. It was designed as a pilot program to demonstrate proof of concept in keeping local organics out of the waste stream. And basically what happened is they had attendees of all ages smash, drop, chop, and pulverize old pumpkins. And then they actually learned about composting. And it was a very well-attended event. My understanding is they are working on next year's event. So I just want to give a big shout out to them and thank them for bringing that to Rocky Hill. I'm not sure if Mr. Carpentino will mention Stuff a Truck. He left. Okay, he's back. But Rocky Hill Emergency Services and Human Services and Youth Services is again partnering to fill the food pantry and collect toys for the holidays. There will be emergency vehicles at Westside Market and Walmart in Rocky Hill on Saturday, December 3rd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And the types of donations that you can bring by are non-perishable food, sanitary items, grocery and store gift cards, and new unwrapped toys to help our disadvantaged families in Rocky Hill this holiday season. If you need more information, you can reach out to Human Services, but it's always a very successful event thanks to folks here in the community. We received a very nice letter from our registrar of voters thanking folks who contributed on Election Day, from everything from reservations of facilities to setup of the polls and tear down, transportation, storage of our election equipment back at Town Hall. These folks who came out to help were really had a big impact on helping our registrars conduct a smooth and problem-free election. So shout out to those workers for coming out. I want to thank our Rocky Hill Terrier hockey team and the boosters who apparently the boys collected 2 giant truckloads of food for the Rocky Hill Food Pantry recently. So on behalf of the town, I would like to thank the team for their community support and for their good work. And of course, to those booster moms and dads who coordinate it and make it all happen. A big congratulations to the winners of the Cora J. Belden Library Pumpkin Contest. I don't know if you guys had an opportunity to see this, but Director Mary Hogan picked up these really cute foam pumpkins, and then she had folks decorate them. And there's actually a video on her Facebook page. And if you could see some of these imaginative designs that people came up with, it's actually mind-blowing. And so shout out to all of those winners. And for those of you with that creative energy, get ready for our 3rd annual Gingerbread House contest. That will be announced soon. There are a number of Winter Wonderland and fun activities being planned. You can get some information from our Parks and Rec. You can go on rockyhillct.myrec.com/info. But just very quickly, on December 10th is going to be our Winter Wonderland. That's always incredible. You do have to have advanced registration. December 15th, Underwater Pictures with Santa, which was really cool to see last year. So make sure you register in advance for that. The holiday drive-in movie is The Polar Express on December 10th. With a rain date of December 11th. But again, make sure you register. And then, of course, the big one is the holiday home decorating contest, which is always super cool to watch and to drive around and to vote on. So registration is due there by December 11th. And judging of houses will be Wednesday, December 14th. And the award categories are pretty cool. It's the brightest house, the most classy house, the best newcomer house, the best neighborhood, and the flashiest. And there's no fee to register and participate. And there's something new. It says something new, Parents' Night Out, currently for kids grades 1 through 5. And they have a couple of evening events. You can check that out on Parks and Rec website. And then finally, just to give you a little bit of info about what I've been working on, as you know, trying to keep the local and local control and serving on every committee possible so that we're not blindsided by anything that happens. So our CROG Legislative Committee has met 2 times now, and we are finalizing recommendations to present to the membership and then ultimately to the public. The CCM, Public Health, Public Safety, and Human Services Committee, we are in that same place right now, just sort of brainstorming, putting items together. And I did receive a letter today from the governor's office, the governor is appointing me to serve on the Opioid Settlement Advisory Committee as one of 7 municipal representatives to guide municipalities throughout Connecticut on sort of best practices on how to spend that giant opioid settlement that we will be funded over the next several years, and what is the best way and what is the best impact for our municipality. So I'm very, very honored to accept this appointment by Governor Lamont and hopefully to do some good work. And that concludes my mayor's report, and we will move on to the town manager's report.
Just a few items. When I was on, I'm not sure if you mentioned Sustainable Rocky Hill Bronze Award.
Oh, no, my goodness.
Good. It's mine. That's mine now. Rocky Hill was awarded the Bronze certification from Sustainable CT, and the award ceremony took place November 14th to recognize all the work that the awardees have done over the course of the summer. And I know they're already waiting for the silver certification. If you're not, we're probably halfway through that already. In addition, we're lining up FOIA, Freedom of Information Act training for Sustainable CT and other committees through Dana McGee, Human Resources. So hopefully that will occur, within the next few weeks after Thanksgiving. And a quick update on the vessel development on Main Street, the 8-30G affordable housing proposal. It's a 30-unit affordable housing apartment complex, which is proposed next door to the Cost Cutters. And that's currently pending review by the Inland Wetlands Commission, or the Open Space and Conservation Commission, for review of inland wetland impacts. And it's currently pending public hearing right now before Planning and Zoning Commission. Planning and Zoning Commission, they have to wait until inland wetlands make their decision, so that hearing has been continued. And you can stop me anytime you have questions.
Okay.
I'm sure I don't have to remind you of that. I want ClearGov. This is I think I'm going to hand this over to Mona McKim, Director of Finance. It's a phenomenal program that she had been wanting to use, and we reviewed it, and it's just going to be, I think it's going to actually, I don't want to use this term, but make the budgeting a little bit fun.
Yeah, that's good. Great.
Are you saying it wasn't fun before?
More fun.
More fun.
More fun. So we're really excited about this. ClearGov is basically, it's an overlay of our financial system. So we're still going to use our financial system. That won't go away. But this is a program that kind of lays over that. It maps what we have, and it makes it an interactive package. So we'll be able to put it online. You'll see it on the website. It'll allow us to get more narrative in there. You've seen the standard, I love my Crystal report spreadsheets and our Word documents, but this puts it into a format that is user-friendly. It's live time, so if we change something, everything will change, rather than, someone, like myself in the background, making sure this spreadsheet totaled the other and everything balanced, so it's interactive. I'm thrilled about it. As you know, we've got, a whole wall full of financial audit awards. There's been a Distinguished Budget Award from the GFOA that's been out for years, and we have not tried that yet. It's been something I've always wanted to see us go with. It gives a lot more information in your budgeting process. You'll see tables of contents, you'll see more information about your special revenues, and this is the platform that's going to bring us to this. So it's exciting, interactive. We'll do some more goals and performance measures to develop our budget pages, charts. And again, of course, that's the exciting side of it. Usually we have a full year to implement this, but the ClearGov has agreed to start working with town manager and I in January, so we're going to do our best to just bang this out. Maybe not to 100%, but it'll definitely be a good product.
Just to expand a little, it will make the budget understandable and actually easy to read. You'll be able to click on the table of contents, it'll take you to the page. You'll have a lot of graphs and charts that you like. And it will pull in information from every department, so you'll know, okay, line item, 00555 is for X, Y, and Z, but you'll know what that project is going to, why are you spending that money? Mm-hmm. We'll put a price tag for particular projects within each many line items. So you'll understand what the money is for. This makes it a little bit more clearer, easier to understand.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. I know, for years I've looked at Glastonbury CIP, and I've just always been blown away by the photos and the descriptions and the transparency. And I think, for purposes not just for us to really be able to start, that really long-term planning, but for the public to be able to see where their dollars are going, I think it's a tremendous effort. So, thank you.
What you can do is go on to the Town of Wyndham website.
Oh, okay.
It's posted now. You can just see what we're talking about.
Cool.
No, this is awesome, Ray. I think, Mona,
Thanks.
Yeah, this is really excellent development. I think what Mayor said, I agree. I think it really makes it transparent and more informative. Otherwise you have to pick up the phone and call Mona and say, hey, what's going on? Generally, that part is done by Alan, but he gets a lot of calls from us. So I think that will ease a little bit of that burden on you, hopefully, and eventually Mona.
You can do it this year. I'm fine with that.
No,
I'll still take phone
not. No way. No way I can do that, Alan.
Okay, Maxwell Park, the rollerblading park, is closed. There are some large cracks that have been occurring over the years, and now they're so large that you really can't be repaired now and retain safety in the park. So the Parks Department, they're looking at alternatives and costs associated with repairs and looking at maybe multiple uses in that area. So I'll keep you posted when Craig gives me some more information.
Thank you.
And Operation Christmas Boxes, a program initiated by Human Services, Melissa Hicks, Director. About 10 minutes before my first staff meeting, Melissa came into my office and said, I have an idea, can I present this to the staff? And the idea was each department stuff a large USPS postal box with a whole bunch of different items to send over to our military overseas who are serving now. She was hoping for 50 boxes. As of this afternoon, she had 75. Each department they're stuffing multiple boxes. I believe she's probably going to have over 80, maybe 85 now. This will be a recurring program every year now. Town Hall, as the staff really came to, and they're dedicated to this. They really love it. It's a team building event also for us. So, thanks to Melissa Hicks and her people.
Ray, you mentioned that she's hoping for 50. We've got 75, might get 80. So do we have a count of how many folks we have currently deployed from town? And is there a gap? Or if we get 100, do people get 2? Like, how does that work?
There'll be shared boxes, I'm sure. I mean, that was the idea. Melissa wanted us to put in not just, the essentials that you usually ship over, but fun things that reminded people of home. Each box has a photo of all of our departments, personnel in each box. Boxes are decorated on the inside. The intent is for the vets to share, and which they probably will. That's the whole idea. So no, I don't know. I don't have a count. There may be one. Melissa may know.
Because I'm sure if there were folks, I mean, it's a great project. I'm sure if there was a way for other folks to help out, not to take away the thing that the town staff's doing, which is really cool, but I'm sure people would be happy to help if there was a gap out there.
I'm pretty sure there was discussion about doing this townwide eventually. We have a banner project going on the Silas Deane Highway for a few months now. We ran into some issues with the size of the banners and the design of those 75 new light poles in the Silas Deane Highway. Our consultant, CGI, will be funding the modifications to those banners. Actually, the banners are going up now. We went from small, tiny banners. Parks and Rec Department, you ask them to do something and it's done, even before you finish asking. They went out and retrofitted all 75 banner arms to allow the new banners to go up. So the program is for businesses to purchase the banners. They'll be up on the poles for a year, maybe a year and a half for the cost of that purchase. The banners are now 26 inches tall or 26 inches wide by 2 feet, by 3 feet. 4 feet, I think. I forget the size, but they're normal size banners. So they'll be up and down the Silas Deane Highway. CGI is covering the cost of Parks and Rec going out and retrofitting. So there's no cost to the town at this point. Community Development Services is reviewing a request for a streetlight at the end of Lake View off of New Britain Avenue. A resident is looking to have a light pole put up near her property. So Steve Sopelek will be evaluating the request. The cost may be around $10,000 that we would have to absorb. Little quick update on 45 Evans Road, the Brownfield grant that we received this past summer for the property along the off of Evans Road with over 2,000 feet of riverfront. It's a unique property. So there was an opportunity to incentivize the redevelopment of that project by getting a grant to pay for the environmental assessments. We finally received the final assistance agreement. So we will be working with DEEP to prepare an RFP to hire a consultant to perform the environmental phase 1, 2, and 3 assessments. The opioid settlement was already discussed, so I don't need to review that. Hayes Road, there was a request by a resident in Hayes Road to meet with the town regarding speeding, sidewalks, traffic calming. We met with that resident today to discuss the issues. And the result of the meeting was we'll look into it. There are some issues that, standard recommended practices in engineering and traffic engineering you shouldn't do. So we need to look a little bit closer to how we could either slow traffic down or make pedestrian safety, heightened.
Will Hayes Road potentially can be a candidate for sidewalks, at least part of it?
There are sidewalks now. There are gaps in the sidewalk. There is a possibility, but Steve was looking at the cost of extending sidewalks 800 feet.
Yeah, although I must say, this applies to a lot of streets in town.
Yeah.
So I don't want to, I'm just using that as an example.
Right.
Yeah.
And it ties into the complete streets policy that we just talked about.
Yeah.
Can you see that? We did receive an email thanking everyone who supported the Rocky Hills Soccer Club and Youth Tournament 2022. I don't think you covered it. Okay. I'm not sure if I should read this whole email.
No. It's long. Did I have a copy if anyone wants it?
It was in the meeting packet.
Okay.
It was in the meeting packet, so, but
This is nice.
they're very, very happy with our response, and the Parks and Recreation Department, Walt, and particularly his crew, Rita, of course, the Rocky Hill Police Department, Lieutenant Klett, and the ambulance and fire departments, very, very helpful. They're very satisfied, and they just were very pleased with how they kicked in and helped out with this entire tournament. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Moving on to adjournment.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
I don't have any of this.